Hello out there in the web world.
Good to see you all. Just want to say I'm glad to see Butch again. We're here every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and last week we had a good session. Last week we talked about truth and reconciliation, and now Butch got pretty passionate. It's not yet seem.
too much eat apple. I just about really got into that, fighting spirit.
So anyways, and today we're talking about Orange Shirt Day. That's why we have our orange shirts today, and talk about some very, very important people that made this happen for Orange Shirt Day. And it's been recognized on September the 30th. So we kind of wanted to talk about it today so people can prepare themselves for September the 30th.
Right.
So everybody can go out and get their orange shirts. And I think it's a good way of remembering and honoring those that went to residential school and the survivors. And the lady that started Orange Shirt Day, I know Butch will be sharing that in a little bit, the historical information of Orange Shirt Day. But it's key. We've been talking about residential school since June. Every Wednesday we got together, and me and Butch, and by way of this media format, we've been able to talk about residential school. And what we're finding out is on residential school, there's so much out there, so much to talk about residential school. And you think you hear it once, then there's more and more and more. So next week we want to encourage you to come on board again. Next week we're going to be talking about the 94 calls to actions on the TRC recommendation, and those were hard work that was done by those individuals that were part of that TRC committee. And when they were done, they pulled all together, and they did an excellent job in outlining some recommendations, some next steps that the government had to do, and so forth. So we'll be talking about that in particular with residential school. But today we're talking about Orange Shirt Day, and that's September the 30th.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Orange Shirt Day is symbolic of a residential school survivor's experience when she went to residential school. Her name is Phyllis Webstad. She's from the Dog Creek Reserve in BC, and she went to was taken to the, before she was going to residential school, she went with her grandmother to the local town and to pick out some going to school clothes, and she chose this nice orange shirt that she wanted to be taken to school with at the time. And her grandmother got that for her, and she was taken to residential school with that orange shirt that she was wearing. And when she got to the school at St. Joseph's residential school in Kamloops, I think that's in Kamloops, right?
Williams, near
Williams Lake or whatever. Yeah, Williams Lake, I think. And she was taken there, and the first thing they did was they took her clothes away. Because at that time, when you go to residential school, for those of you who don't know what happens to us when we go there, we get our especially for the guys, we get our hair cut. Same with the girls, they get the short cut, and then we get sanitized, and we get our clothes taken away from us, and that's usually the last time we ever see those clothes that we went there with from home. And in her case, Phyllis was really proud of that orange shirt that she had chosen, and it was taken away, and that's the last time she ever seen it. And through the years, being a residential school survivor, she went through a lot of issues regarding addictions, and finally went to treatment and went through recovery. So when the residential school survivors, these issues were brought up, she shared that story of her orange shirt, and it became, it was taken on as a symbol of the residential school survivors. And that's why today we're wearing our orange shirts here, and there's all different kinds of, from different nations and whatever, that are honoring the orange shirt memory and symbolism of June 30th, Truth and Reconciliation Day. So this came from BC. And interestingly enough, just down the road in Kamloops, that's where they first uncovered that the 215 unmarked graves of children who had died in residential school. And so those 215 children kind of kick-started the I guess you could say, the truth part of and the other part is the reconciliation. But the truth is that there were 215 unmarked graves of children who never made it home. And the families weren't notified or anything, and that became a central focus of this truth, the enactment of Truth and Reconciliation Day by the federal government. And it has trickled down to the provinces, and sad to say, Alberta is not one of those that recognize that, although various districts such as the Wheatland County, the Golden Hills district, they're going to be recognizing that day, and that they've taken it upon themselves to work with that, simply because of Strathmore, which is a big town center close to the reserve here at Siksika, has reached out through a tragic event that happened with one of our hockey players, our nation members. That was a fatal incident that prompted Strathmore to begin to take measures about working closer together with Siksika Nation. And this kind of precludes Truth and Reconciliation. And so now that has they've stepped up their efforts. And I just want to commend Strathmore Mayor and Council for stepping up to begin this process. So there's some activities they're going to be doing there in Strathmore regarding building up to Truth and Reconciliation Day on September 30th. So that's just a quick background to the origin and how that was brought forward by those unmarked graves. And now there's more. At last count, they're saying, last count is about 6,000 plus unmarked graves that have been discovered. And so with that, I just wanted to just share that with our viewers, that this is, for us, me and Vincent, we're the survivors, and there's still a lot of us here on the nation that survived that residential school, I guess you could say, initiative by the federal government to eradicate us, and I guess you could say, just to put it short, that was their way of trying to get rid of us. And now it's been deemed a genocide because it meets all the criteria of genocide under the United Nations way of categorizing these kinds of tragic events. So that's the origins and where we are now.
Thank you. That was very good. And just I think people need to know where it started, and I don't know if the technicians have a picture of her. I was able to find her this morning, the lady that started the Orange Shirt Day. And Williams Lake is a nice area. I like going there, and beautiful place, and the people that live outside Williams Lake, and got to know a few of them years ago when I was out there. So nice area, and people are very nice over there in that area. So just want to thank her for her inspiration and inspiring. You know, Butch Wolfleg here, we grew up together, and we went to residential school together, and him and I, we I don't know, we've known each other for many, many years, and I won't say how many years, because Butch is way older than me.
Vincent is like about 2 months older than me, so he becomes my elder for a while, so I really have to listen to him for that short period of time.
So I'm an elder to him for a couple of months, then he catches up with me.
And he was a pretty mean hockey player. I think he was taking out a lot of his frustrations on the team we were playing, like that trauma that's coming out on the ice there.
The trauma. We played hockey together, and I played left wing, and he was a defenseman, and also the late Richard Manyheads, I remembered him. Oh, we had lots of fun times playing. Yeah. And we talked about residential school, him and I, and one of the things that they took away from us, or tried to take away from us, was our language. And so one session, if you find out, one session, we talked for a whole hour just in Blackfoot. Niksi napi koeksi o tuuposi, it sucks. Sikaatstum kitsapaitapisin, kitsiipuksest. Kaamusi kaksennuuniksi, manistista wakpi, hannista saks sikaatstuumia. Ani kuksistutuukin niksi okakstumeiksi, kiukseskinemaatskutkiiksi, kiuksi naatuja piikoiksi, kiuksi naatuakiiksi, hanniksi ustuavai ikuksistutuukin. So I had a text this morning from one of our friends in residential school, and I won't name him in respect, but he said it was awful. He had a horrible time in residential school, and so we're hearing all these things, and the reason I'm saying this is because in the TRC, that commission that was set out to go across Canada and listen to all the survivors as much as they could across Canada. They heard those stories and the awful things that took place in residential school. So next week we'll be talking about that, the TRC, the 94 calls to action and so forth. But this Orange Shirt Day, and when I was reading that, this Phyllis, it just kind of, it grieved my heart. The reason why it grieved my heart, because she was so excited to go to a store, and she remembers that store. It was called Robinson's Store when she was a little girl. We had a Robinson store here.
Yeah, we had one in Gleason.
Yeah. So I remember that store. I remember that store. It had groceries, it had clothing, and that's where we bought some of our clothes and so forth. And so she was excited. Her grandma took her to that store, and she picked out that orange shirt. And she was just so excited, just happy, and just excited about wearing that orange shirt. And so she probably got up early that morning and got her hair combed and so forth. And she went to the residential school, and they stripped everything from her. And I know in our school, the residential school that we went to, my sisters and my cousins that are on the girls' side, when we would walk to the residential school, back then there was hardly any vehicle, so we would walk to the residential school miles and miles and make it to the residential school. And the next time I would see them, they would all be in their uniforms. I would be in a uniform, and my sister and my cousins, their hairs would be cut, and they just looked different, and they were stripped of who they were, and the beauty of their hair, the length of their hair, and they just cut it, no second thoughts. They just went and sharpened those scissors and just went away to work and cut everybody on the girls' side, and it was sad, and to see that, and that's what I thought of. It brought up memories of to see that happening, and Butch and I we talked about the numbers that were given to us. What was your number in residential school?
It was 17.
17, yeah, and so my number was 18. My number was 18, and we had to line up. We had to, and when they gave us their clothes, it had number 18. They didn't call us by our names. They didn't took our shirts off and say, "This belongs to Vincent, your old woman." They never said that. Never heard that in residential school. Number 18. Number 18. And if you didn't respond right away, you got into trouble. So you had to listen. You had to be careful. They gave us clothes that we had to wear, and I remembered the supervisor, when we showered and all got cleaned and everybody got a comb, and he took out of his back pocket a comb, and he said, "See this comb? I've had it for 15 years, this comb. And I want you guys to have your combs that's been given to you all through the school year. Don't lose it. I've had this comb for 15 years. And so when the supervisor left, the junior boys were talking to each other, and they would take out their comb and they were saying to each other, "I've had this comb for 15 years." What day must see any of the supervisor? I lost my comb in 15 minutes. But anyways.
What was there to comb anyways?
I still don't have any hair today. And,
we had our hair shaved right down. And
oh yeah.
So what was there to comb? I don't know why they gave us a comb.
Yeah. So this session that and I'm glad that my friend Butch here, we're together on this, so we're not professional. If it was run by white people, you know what they'll do? They'll get on the phone, on their email, they'll get this doctor, they'll get this professor. Oh, I know somebody from Harvard, I know somebody this, they'll get all these guys. But we're the real McCoy.
We were there.
We were there. And we're not talking to you from textbooks or some research that we've done. Mm-hmm. We're talking to you about the real stuff that took place in residential school. And that's what that lady did. And I'm proud of her sharing her story. Just because she shared her story, it exploded all across Canada. And people now today are looking forward. On September the 30th, those of you that are watching, if you're in Calgary, I'm going to be speaking at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. I think that's what it's called. And they're having, they're honoring the Orange Shirt Day, Truth and Reconciliation. And I'm proud of that. And the reason that lady that was inspired with the orange shirt started a movement. And I remembered when I was a chief, I was heading up to Edmonton to a meeting, and somebody texted me and they said, "Chief, you got an orange shirt?" And I said, "Today's orange shirt," and I forgot all about it. It was that day, but I managed to stop at a store and I got an orange shirt, and I went to my meeting, and it's very significant to wear orange, and don't forget, Orange Day and on September the 30th. When she inspired everybody, she inspired the survivors, she inspired elders, she inspired school kids. And today's school kids, my grandkids this morning, I asked my granddaughter Maribel, good striker, I told her, "What's orange shirt? What does it mean?" She knew what orange shirt day. I know what it is. So she was talking about the lady Phyllis, and so even our kids know. And my challenge to you guys that what about the white schools? What about those residentials? What about do they know about residential school? Do they know what Orange Shirt Day is? We need to promote it. We need people to know. She inspired our families, inspired our children, inspired our elders, and then also our government. See, at that time, the NDP was in government, not the Conservative today, not them, NDP. And when I went up there, and I was the chief at that time, and they gave me a gift, and I want to share this gift. And the lady that was the minister of the Aboriginal Affairs of Alberta, her name was Kathleen Gailey. She was a lawyer, a smart lawyer, I hear. And she gave me this gift. And I don't know if you guys can see that. A beautiful gift. And what's significant about this gift that she gave me, it was an eagle feather, and eagle feather is orange. And so I thought that was very, very powerful. And Kathleen, the MLA, that's her correct title. And on behalf of the Alberta government at that time, the NDP, gave me this as the chief of Siksika Nation. So and that's what that Phyllis did. She inspired our families, our children, our grandchildren. She inspired our communities, and she was able to share her story. And the Premier of Alberta, I got an invitation, and they asked me to go up to the Parliament in Alberta, and they put us on the what they call the public gallery there in Alberta legislature. And I sat there with my headdress on, and some other chiefs, I forget how many chiefs, there was quite a few of us at that time. We were all wearing our headdress, the chiefs of Alberta, and Premier of that time, an NDP, Rachel Notley, apologized to First Nations in Alberta, in particular in Alberta. So that was nice. She made an apology, and she was sorry, and she was going to do all that she can. Incidentally, the NDP was the ones that were, she heard the chief saying, "You need to teach your children. You need these things being taught in elementary schools. Why don't you do that?" And because of her good hard work, and doing what was needed to be done, she went out and said that she would make sure that it was taught in the Alberta schools. But then she got voted out. The Albertans didn't like her for whatever reason. She wasn't in power anymore, and we got a new government, and I don't hear too much about them. And anyways,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah,
Just- just
that's
yeah.
quite the honor to be given something, and it kind of it has more significance now
yeah,
regarding the Orange Shirt Day.
yeah,
And I also want to extend an appreciation to our non-Indigenous brothers and sisters who have taken it upon themselves to also display their orange shirts and their
yes,
orange, I guess you could say, displays to let people know that they're there with us and they're willing to learn what has happened. And the curriculum now that has been brought forward in Alberta, that's still an interesting different points of view regarding that. And one of the things that they said was they shouldn't be sharing this kind of information, tragic as it may be, with the younger grades. Well, look at us. We were what, 5 years old when we
5
went
years
there?
old.
And
Yeah,
we
we were
experienced
young.
this thing, and nobody said, "Well, we don't want these 5-year-olds
yeah,
we'll leave them alone till they're older." They did all that stuff to us, and that's what these young people they can how would you say it? They can they have a point of reference, such as the grade. Right now, take a look at the elementary school grades. Those were the ones that we were the same ages that a lot of these atrocities were heaped on us at those ages, and they'll have an idea that they were the same age when these things were happening to them, and that's the truth. Again, that needs to be brought forward, and for us, a lot of times. We get these different viewpoints, and some of them can be kind of ugly. The responses to Orange Shirt Day and Truth and Reconciliation, simply because we talked about that before. We realized that these kind of feelings against the Indigenous people, children aren't born with that. They're taught. And they're taught at home through their parents, grandparents, who also were taught at home to have these kind of stereotypes and these kind of conclusions and these kind of, well, how would you say it, misinformation about what we're all about. And I think there's a reckoning. Especially that's why I'm especially grateful that young non-Indigenous people are taking it upon themselves to learn as much as they can. Horrifying as it may be, that's the truth. And hopefully with the next generations, they'll be able to pass this information on, and there'll be I guess you could say a community of healing that will be going through these different communities and so forth. So there is one of the things that I'm always just like the orange shirt. It gives us an idea of hope that these stories, this truth, will come out, will be shared, and people can begin to understand more about who we are and some of the challenges and obstacles that we've had to go through as survivors. Think about it. You see that Survivors series on TV? This was a real life survival for us at a very young age. And by the time you reach 16 in residential school, you were just let go.
yeah,
So they managed. They had at least about 10 or more years to work with us to get the Indian out of us, and that there's still that tragedy of all the lost ones regarding the Orange Shirt Day and the discovery of unmarked graves. That's still continuing right now. And that is something that it's not going to go away. It's here to stay.
Yeah.
And this is history. The history that was taught from a non-Indigenous perspective, simply to, lack of better words, to cover up the theft of our way of life, the eradication of our beliefs, such as our spiritual ways, trying to get rid of those. And as we had talked about before, the land.
Yeah.
The land that you live anywhere in Canada, well, for that fact, North America. That land that you're living on right there, that's what our ancestors were taking care of. That's what says their very existence was from that land, of what that land offered to them in the form of food and plants and animals that survived. I mean, that used that land to nourish themselves, and then we in turn would nourish ourselves with our relationship with the land and the animals and the plants. So you can take a walk outside your place, and take a look at that nice soil you have under your feet. And that was a land that was occupied by us, and every square inch of it. And we have it in our past and our stories and our identification of different areas of talking about Alberta. All these places had names in our language, and that has never been fully researched. And I'm especially glad that there are places that are beginning to change names, such as in Calgary. There used to be that Langevin Bridge, and they've changed the name of that. Bishop Grandin, the high school, they have changed that. The Grandin Station, Edmonton, that's named simply because the names were synonymous with people that were part of that residential school initiative to get the Indian out of us and do it in any way possible, short of just killing us, which they did anyway. That's why you have the unmarked grave. So all of this is all tied together.
Well, thank you, number 17. You did a good job.
Okay, thank you, 18. I think that's why we're always kind of close together, because this treaty number is only 3 numbers from me, and our numbers are only 1 number from each other, because my last name is Wolfleg, W. Yellow old woman, Y, at the alphabet.
So, number 17, you're teaching us some good stuff. And thank you for and there's quite a few of them. And a lot of the white people out there, what's the correct term? Caucasian. But in residential school,
let's just say non-Indigenous, because
covers
Canada is a land of immigrants. Diversity.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, the term white never came into existence until about 300 years ago.
300? Yeah, that's true.
Before that, it was like Irish, British, Scandinavian,
Russians, Chinese.
Then the word white suddenly became part of the English language, and so there was never really any white culture.
That's true. And so I'm glad that you're recognizing some key people from that culture that are helping us in a good way, because they understand what we went through, and when we share our story, they they want to help us in a sincere way. And because I'm involved with a lot of different groups, and I tell them, I said, if you got an agenda and you're just wanting to promote your agenda and your numbers, see that door, go out. But if you want to have a relationship with us, if you want to know who we are, you're welcome. There's a lot of difference. And and I thank those people that have come in and wanted a relationship with us and get to know us and so forth. Very few.
One point that has really stuck out for me was in high school in Calgary.
Yeah.
I went to Crescent Heights High School, by the way. So anybody out there from Crescent Heights? All right. Go Cowboys. That was used to be the team name. Our social studies teacher was an old lady. And around the Remembrance Day, we used to have these ceremonies at the school that would honor some veterans and so forth. But after that Remembrance Day, we had a visitor. And the visitor that came in was a survivor of those camps, concentration camps that the Germans put people in.
Oh, the Jewish camp.
Yeah, Jewish camp. And she was a survivor.
Wow.
And she came in and she shared her story with us. And for me, that totally put a totally different perspective on World War II.
Yeah.
And not just the Allies fighting against the German empire and whatever you want to call it. But that really boosted my interest in learning more about the war and all the other things that happened with it. And this Jewish lady came in and she talked about, and she was just a little girl, and she was separated from her parents, never seen them again. And she was put into these different places to do all kinds of work. And she managed to survive.
Yeah.
And she came over, immigrated to Canada, started up her family, and in fact she ended up with another Holocaust survivor. That's what we call it nowadays. And they got together and they raised a family and they settled in Calgary, and it really struck home to me.
Yeah.
And so that's something that maybe people need to take a look at for this Truth and Reconciliation Day in regards to educating our students.
Yeah.
It's inviting and bringing in a residential school survivor to talk about those things.
That's a profound story about what you heard at that young age. Mm-hmm. And these children that are in elementary, junior high, they're being protected by these people, so-called professionals, and say, no, you can't teach that kind of stuff at that level. But they need to learn. They need to know what really took place with us in residential school. And I shared my story with the Alberta government and their technicians and their people there in respect to the curriculum. And I told them, I said, you need to share. And well, how old? I said, when in residential school, they didn't care how old you were. They just brought us in there. Now you're saying they have to be 18 or 15 or whatever.
It's R-rated now.
Yeah. So it's sad. They got it all twisted around. But anyways, they'll do whatever they can to make sure the story and the survivor stories and our experiences are never told. It has to be told. Now, going back to what I was saying, that there are people that are embracing who we are, and I'm reaching out to them, and they're reaching back to us. And if they got an agenda, I don't want to know you. But if you got a sincere heart and you want to get to know us in a good way and appreciate who we are, and not to try and change us. We don't want you cutting our hair. You don't want you guys putting us in a uniform. None of that. We don't want you to do that to us. And we want you to know who we are. We're able to speak our language. We're able to sing our songs. We're able to dance our dances and so forth. That's who we are as Siksika people. And we talked about the values. And so when people from that, those what are their children are missing out. They're missing out the valuable things that we as First Nations contribute to into the society. And I want to acknowledge those people that have reached out. There's one lady by the name of Deanna Birch. You've met her.
Mm-hmm.
Deanna Birch is a drama teacher at Strathmore High School, and she reached out to our community and embraced who we are, and without a second thought, she wanted to help us out in a good way. So sometime in the future, we'll have her come.
Yeah.
And let her tell her story, and tell her story of what she's doing for residential school survivors. And at Strathmore High School, they have this play. If you guys have a computer, punch in Strathmore High School in Alberta, and punch in New Blood, and that's who's the brains behind that. And it talks about this individual that went to Ocean Residential School.
That was you. You're the one who inspired that New Blood.
So it's interesting when they're talking about me, they call me subject. Just call.
You can see some of it behind us.
There it is.
That's
there
the
it
play
is.
that goes on. And they made a play out of Vincent's experience in residential school, how he was stripped of all these things and managed to start to recover those, and became chief of Siksika Nation.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think it was only a couple, or maybe a week ago, they did another performance up in
Wetaskiwin.
In Wetaskiwin.
You know, they had a good performance in Wetaskiwin. And so some people talk about this play, and they don't want to call my name. They call me the subject. Don't do that. My name is Vincent.
So you're not number 18 anymore. You're the subject.
I'm not a subject. So don't pull me back into residential school. That's who it was born from. My experience in residential school. I poured that out. And so anyways, they did a good play in Wetaskiwin.
Mm-hmm.
You know why? I got a call from a lady that attended the play in Wetaskiwin, and she could not say enough good things. So you guys out there, I know you're watching me from Ontario, and I know you're watching me from Saskatchewan. What's wrong with you guys? There is a play, maybe you don't want me to speak, but there's a play, those of you in Calgary, it's behind us, you see it? There's that guy in the mask. That's that supervisor, that priest. Awful things took place. And so my grandson is playing me.
Yeah, our grandchildren are there, and our nieces and nephews, and that's what I find. In fact, for myself, being a survivor, I knew about this play.
Yeah.
And I kept putting off going, simply because I just, let's say, you've been there.
Yeah.
And I actually was kind of scared what my reactions were going to be.
Yeah.
So I finally got to see that at Glenbow, when they did a performance there.
It was good.
And I'll tell you, it really hit. Really hit me good.
So
and that's something that I would really highly recommend residential school survivors go and take a look at this play when it comes up within our area. And I think that's one area that a lot of people need to make use of, these kind of avenues, such as this play called New Blood.
Yeah.
Which can be brought to your school, your town, your city, and in order to focus the issue of residential school. And you've got the subject right here, so, and I'm just a side subject.
Subject two. So don't call us subject, call us by our names. You know, you guys need to promote it. Now you know that you just go on the website, go to Strathmore High School and find out, and we're gonna bring Deanna Birch and let her tell her story.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Deanna Birches out there.
Oh, yes.
And they're helping us and they're promoting us and they're doing what they can and supporting us in a good way. You know, when this 215 was discovered, all these unmarked graves, it just kind of shook everybody, every Canadian. If you didn't have a heart, it didn't shake you, but it shook people's heart. My two nieces went up to Calgary shortly after the discovery of those. They were telling me they were eating in a restaurant, and when they were done eating, a couple came forward and don't know the guy, the people there, and they said, "We're going to pay for your meal," and they talked about the unmarked graves. So just that little gesture, and people are hearing about the awful things that took place. I knew it. That's why I was very passionate last week. The truth had to be told, and if you continue to zip our mouths and keep us hit in the corner and keep those young children in the grave, someone will tell you guys. If it's not in our age group, but our grandchildren will know the passion. I know now my grandfather, why he was so passionate about residential school, the awful things that took place in that. And it was terrible. I don't want anybody to go. I don't even want my enemies to go to residential school, and how awful it was. And you know, it's not a good place. It's not, and it's something that has to be told. And I am so thankful, very thankful from the bottom. I cannot say enough thank you to Mary Sinclair, and he's an excellent lawyer from Manitoba. He was the chairman of the TRC, and the good hard work. I've worked with him, I've sat with him in meetings, and you can find a humble man like Mary Sinclair, just a powerful influence. And I shared my story with him and the others, and you could just see his heart. And when the 215 were discovered, he came out and said, the survivors have been saying this. And he said, I knew going into the assignment given to me about the residential school here and there. So he said, I knew the awfulness I was going to hear, but he said, I never realized the depth of those bodies and those children that were killed. He said, I wasn't prepared for that. And so that's the truth. That's the truth. It's not a lie. And when these students in residential school that survive, and when they're telling you they saw a little boy, a little girl got killed in residential school, that's the truth. Don't cover it up. Let them tell their story. So anyways, it's been a good session.
Yeah.
Butch, you got any last words you want to share?
I just want to say that I can't, I don't get tired of reiterating the fact that there are residential school survivors out there here in Siksika Nation. And those people need to be utilized for all their experience in order to teach the young people. And also the surrounding communities, our First Nation, the County of Wheatland, County of Newell, the County of Vulcan, Calgary, we're here. Our residential school survivors, the way that we tell our story in Blackfoot, we say, which means we start to share who we are, and start to bring up things that we've never shared before. It's also I guess you would say, it's a way of healing for ourselves to be able to talk about these things. And I've been to several different presentations, and both Indigenous and non-Indigenous young people, and their questions are very, very important, and that's who I usually like to share with young people, because their minds are open. They're not that, how would you say it, they're still very healthy, and they can take in a lot of this information. So just want to let people know out there, we're still here. And there's a time and a place where you're going to find the last residential school survivor finally get taken to a proper graveyard and marked. And that, after that, the legacy will fall on your hands to continue this truth and reconciliation.
Thank you, Butch, and I always look forward to, I know he's a busy man, and but every Wednesday we're here. Mm-hmm. And so now you found us. I hope that you can find your Wednesday afternoon home with us. And we're talking about residential school. And I'm going to ask the technicians if you could close off with that poem, Kill the Indian in the Child. And that's another story in itself. And that's what they use in that play in Strathmore. And it's been good today. And when I talk about residential school, it really stirs my heart. And I remember at one time, years ago, I was in I'll not name it was a church gathering, and they call it a conference. And I talked about residential school. Nobody said anything after. The MC said, okay, the next thing on the agenda is we're going to talk about, it wasn't even like they weren't hearing us, you know? And it really disturbed my heart. And so people that should know better and have the radar in their hearts to find out the spirituality and the heart and so forth, and the brokenness, they're the ones that should see that. But it wasn't. And now they're jumping on board, you know? Where was your heart? In those villages and those reserves that you're nearby, they were telling you, and they will continue to tell you. And you need to listen to them. You need to hear their stories. So anyways, we'll see you guys next week. And
okay, number 18.
So you got that poem?
6 years old on his first day of school, and emotions are running high. Mom and Dad are left home alone as he bids his parents goodbye. The shiny white building in a faraway place holds promise and a yet unknown fear. The footsteps this young boy will take on his own should have been taken with family near. The weather here is changing and dark clouds are closing in. The boy can't withstand them for long. They remind him his skin is sin. They are sinister like the weather and like a storm that brews within. They wash away childlike innocence, trying to kill the Indian in him. They tried to kill the Indian in the child. They thought he was a savage, untamable and wild. They could not see the Creator's plan for him was the same for you and me. We are meant to walk together on the good red road of beauty. Kill the Indian in the child, they said, and to be sure those teachers tried. No language, no family, no culture. Every night he cried. A forced haircut and a cruel bath, bleaching brown skin into white. Though they tried to kill the Indian survived. Their methods were born of ignorance. Along the way, the road got twisted. The boy could not do a single thing right, no matter how hard he listened. The lessons that he learned were not about writing, literature, or math. What will it take before graduation for him to discover a welcoming path? They tried to kill the Indian in the child. They thought he was a savage, untamable, and wild. They could not see the Creator's plan for him was the same for you and me. We are meant to walk together on the good red road of beauty. Oh, Canada, you failed your people. Where did you go wrong? Underneath that national anthem, you were not true, free, or strong. You built a railroad to unite this nation and sent your beautiful children to jail. They were beaten, starved, and tortured, and their future was derailed. You get 9 years for rape and drug deals, 9 years for a major crime, or 9 years in residential school to kill the Indian in the child. Generations have been affected and had to remember how to pray, to rediscover a sacred culture and find forgiveness along the way. For years, he spent nights searching for a love he couldn't find, in the walls within his prison, in the eyes that had gone blind. As he found the path to forgiveness, he could leave that pain behind. The grace he knew would save him was in his heart and not his mind. Once punished for sins like laughing, jailed in chicken coops by powers that were, we are walking again on the good red road and creating a new future. We thank the Creator for giving us life and reminding us every day that the enemy who destroyed us once is now the friend with whom we pray. The Indian in that child is the chief of his people today. He is leading his community, showing them grace along the way. They walk towards a new future in this country we all share, so that his 6-year-old grandchild will have no reason to be scared. They tried to kill the Indian in the child. They thought he was a savage, untamable, and wild. They could not see the Creator's plan for him was the same for you and me. We are meant to walk together on the good red road of beauty. Thank you, Creator.